Welcome back to the deep dive. You know we love to explore the wild world of Bitcoin, and this time you've sent us some fascinating articles and notes
Yeah,
about companies using their balance sheets to buy up Bitcoin,
right.
like it's digital gold. So let's unpack this.
Absolutely lots to unpack.
Yeah, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so Bitcoin is hitting new all-time highs,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's trying to figure out what's driving it. One of the most talked about factors seems to be companies like MicroStrategy
Right.
turning themselves into Bitcoin investment vehicles.
You got it.
Yeah,
It's a bold move.
it is.
And MicroStrategy under Michael Saylor's leadership has been leading the charge.
They have, yeah.
They've been borrowing and raising capital specifically to buy more Bitcoin.
Right.
It's generated massive returns for their shareholders.
It really has. Saylor's almost become a legend in the Bitcoin community.
Yes.
But this whole approach just seems so counterintuitive
Yeah.
to everything we know about traditional finance. Like, isn't it incredibly risky to essentially bet your entire company
Yeah.
on the volatile price of Bitcoin?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
Some analysts are calling it a reckless gamble,
Oh, wow.
while others see it as this brilliant strategic move.
Yeah.
Saylor is essentially betting that Bitcoin will outperform traditional assets
Mm.
in the long run. So he's basically turned MicroStrategy into a leveraged bet on Bitcoin's future.
And so far, it seems to be paying off.
It does.
But is this something other companies can replicate? Can anyone just follow MicroStrategy's playbook and expect similar results?
Not that simple.
Okay.
What's fascinating about MicroStrategy is that they were early adopters.
Mm-hmm.
They got in when Bitcoin was relatively undervalued,
Yeah.
and they rode the wave up.
Mm-hmm.
They created this aura of success that attracts investors.
Yeah.
But their success raises this really crucial question.
Okay.
Is buying Bitcoin becoming a competitive advantage or even a necessity for businesses?
It almost feels like we're entering a world where companies need to have a Bitcoin strategy to stay relevant.
That's it. And that's what makes this so intriguing.
Right.
We really need to look deeper into the concept of Bitcoin yield,
Okay.
which is central to understanding why companies are doing this.
Okay, break it down for us. Bitcoin yield.
Sure.
What does that even mean?
Essentially, it's the idea that the value of a company's Bitcoin holdings can increase faster
Oh, okay.
than the company's stock price.
Okay.
So in MicroStrategy's case, investors are essentially betting that the amount of Bitcoin they hold per share
Mm-hmm.
will increase over time, even if they issue new shares to buy more Bitcoin.
Okay.
They're betting on the ratio,
I see.
not just the price of Bitcoin itself.
So it's not just about the price of Bitcoin going up.
Right.
It's about the company accumulating Bitcoin at a faster rate
Uh-huh.
than they're issuing new shares.
Precisely. That's why it's often referred to as a leveraged bet.
I see.
But of course, this strategy comes with risks.
Right, because if the price of Bitcoin were to plummet,
Mm-hmm.
these companies would be left holding a very rapidly depreciating asset,
Right.
right? And the debt that they took on to buy the Bitcoin would magnify their losses.
Exactly. It's a high-stakes game, no doubt.
Yeah.
And that's why it's essential to look beyond the hype and really understand the nuances of each company's approach.
Yeah.
You know, MicroStrategy might be the poster child for this Bitcoin treasury strategy,
Right.
but they're not the only ones playing this game.
Yeah, you also sent over some information about a company called Metaplanet,
Right.
who are taking a slightly different approach.
Yep.
Yeah, Metaplanet.
Hmm.
They're based in Japan, right?
Yes. And that's a key part of their strategy.
Oh, yeah.
They're leveraging Japan's incredibly low interest rates to their advantage.
Okay.
They're able to borrow money very cheaply and use it to buy Bitcoin.
So they're kind of exploiting the difference in interest rates between different countries
Uh-huh.
to make their Bitcoin purchases even more profitable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Playing a multi-layered financial game, taking into account currency exchange rates,
Wow.
interest rate differentials, and Bitcoin's price fluctuations.
So it's even sophisticated than MicroStrategy.
Potentially even more lucrative,
Wow.
but also riskier.
Riskier. Okay.
Yeah.
So it seems like every company is crafting its own unique strategy,
Uh-huh.
but the underlying theme is the same,
Yeah.
leveraging their assets to get in on the potential upside of Bitcoin.
Right.
But for someone like me or like you trying to make sense of all of this, what's the best approach? Should we buy Bitcoin directly
Right.
or invest in these companies betting big on Bitcoin?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is, isn't it?
There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
It depends on your individual risk tolerance, your investment goals, and understanding of the market.
So essentially it boils down to whether you want to ride the roller coaster yourself or watch someone else take the ride while you're holding on to their bag.
Yeah. That's one way to put it.
Yeah.
Both approaches have their own pros and cons.
Right. Buying Bitcoin directly gives you direct exposure to its price movements, both the highs and the lows.
Yeah, you got it.
But investing in a company like MicroStrategy or Metaplanet is like a leveraged bet on Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Amplifying both the potential gains and the potential losses.
Yeah, you get more of both.
More of both. So you have to be prepared for that.
And remember, regardless of which path you choose, it's essential to do your research, understand the risks involved, and never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Right.
This is still a relatively new and evolving market.
Yeah.
Things can change very quickly.
It's a wild, unpredictable ride.
It is.
It really does make you wonder if individual companies are making these big bets on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Should governments consider doing the same? There's been talk about a Bitcoin strategic reserve for the United States, right?
Yeah, there's definitely been a growing conversation around the idea of a Bitcoin strategic reserve, with some even advocating for the U.S. government to print money to buy Bitcoin.
Whoa, hold on. Print money to buy Bitcoin. That sounds like something straight out of a science fiction novel.
It's a wild idea.
It is.
But it has some supporters.
What's the rationale behind this idea?
Proponent of this strategy see it as a way for the U.S. to protect itself from the devaluation of the dollar. They argue that Bitcoin, with its limited supply and decentralized nature, could act as a kind of digital gold. A safe haven asset.
Interesting.
That could help preserve the nation's wealth in times of economic uncertainty.
So they're basically saying that Bitcoin could be a hedge against inflation and potentially even challenge the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency.
That's the idea.
But what do the critics say? This has to be a pretty controversial idea.
It is very controversial. And as you can imagine, there are strong arguments against this strategy as well. Critics argue that Bitcoin is far too volatile and unpredictable to be a reliable store of value for a government. They point to its price swings, its susceptibility to hacking and fraud, and the lack of regulatory oversight as major red flags.
It's a big gamble, that's for sure.
It is.
It's one thing for a company like MicroStrategy to take a calculated risk on Bitcoin. But it's a whole different ballgame when you're talking about a government managing taxpayer money.
Absolutely.
It raises so many questions.
It does.
About risk, responsibility, the potential impact on the global financial system.
You hit the nail on the head. It's a very complex issue with far-reaching implications, and it's likely to be debated for years to come.
It seems like it.
But it does highlight a crucial trend we're seeing, the increasing influence of technology on how we think about money, markets, and even national economic strategy.
It makes you wonder if this is just the tip of the iceberg, the beginning on a much larger shift. We've already seen the emergence of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, the rise of decentralized finance, and now we're even talking about governments potentially holding digital assets.
It's a brave new world.
It is. What's next?
Well, it's certainly an exciting time to be watching this space.
It is.
And speaking of disruptive technology, we have to talk about the tension between innovation and regulation that's playing out in the tech industry as a whole.
There are so many parallels here.
There are.
Whether we're talking about Bitcoin, self-driving cars, or even AI like ChatGPT. There's this constant push and pull between those who want to unleash the power of these technologies and those who want to regulate them to protect the public interest.
That's the dilemma.
It is.
It's a classic dilemma, and one that's becoming increasingly difficult to navigate as the pace of technological change just accelerates.
And we see this playing out in a really stark way with self-driving cars.
Absolutely.
On one hand, you have the potential to revolutionize transportation, making our roads safer and more efficient. But on the other hand, you have these very legitimate concerns about safety, liability, and the impact on jobs and the economy.
And it's not just a technological challenge.
It's not.
It's a social and political one as well.
We
need to think about how to integrate self-driving cars into our existing infrastructure. How to address the ethical dilemmas they pose, and how to ensure that the benefits are shared widely and equitably.
It feels like we're at a crossroads with self-driving cars.
I think we are.
Are we going to embrace the future and push for rapid adoption? Or are we going to let fear and uncertainty hold us back?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah,
there are very strong arguments on both sides.
Right.
Optimists point to the potential for self-driving cars to save lives by eliminating human error, reducing traffic congestion, and creating new economic opportunities.
Okay.
Skeptics worry about unforeseen consequences, unintended side effects, the potential for these technologies to be used in ways that harm or exploit people.
It sounds like we need to proceed with caution.
Yeah.
But also with a sense of urgency.
Right.
The longer we wait, the more lives are lost to accidents.
Yeah.
That could potentially be prevented by autonomous vehicles.
Absolutely. I agree. We need to find a way to move forward responsibly, but decisively.
Right.
We need to create frameworks that allow for safe testing and deployment of these technologies, but also put safeguards in place to address the potential risks.
It's like walking a tightrope.
It is.
Between embracing innovation and ensuring public safety.
You got it.
We see a similar tension playing out with AI.
We do.
Particularly with the emergence of tools like ChatGPT.
Yeah, ChatGPT has really captured the public's imagination.
It has.
And also raised a whole host of questions about the future of work, creativity, and even the very nature of intelligence.
I mean, it's mind-blowing to see what AI can do now, from writing poems to composing music to generating computer code.
It really is amazing.
It makes you wonder what jobs will even exist in a decade or two when AI can do so much of what humans can do.
Right.
Often better and faster.
Yeah, it's a legitimate concern.
It is.
And one that we need to be having serious conversations about.
For sure.
But it's also important to remember that AI is a tool.
Okay.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill. It's up to us to decide how we want to shape this technology and ensure that it serves humanity's best interests.
We can't just bury our heads in the sand and pretend this isn't happening.
We can't.
We have to figure out how to adapt, how to harness the power of AI while also mitigating its potential downsides.
Right.
It's like trying to ride a wave instead of getting crushed by it.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And it highlights a crucial point. Those who can adapt, learn new skills, and embrace these new technologies will thrive in this new world.
Okay.
Those who cling to the old ways of doing things risk being left behind.
So it's not about fearing the future.
No.
It's about preparing for it, about being proactive.
Yes.
And taking control of our own destinies.
Exactly. And a big part of that is understanding how these technologies are changing the rules of the game in various industries. For example, the cryptocurrency space is a prime example of this tension between innovation and regulation.
On one hand, you have this incredible potential of blockchain technology to revolutionize finance, empower individuals, and create a more inclusive global economy.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there are serious concerns about fraud, money laundering, the potential for these technologies to be used for illicit activity.
Exactly. So how do you balance the need to foster innovation with the need to protect consumers and ensure the stability of the financial system?
It's like trying to thread a needle while riding a roller coaster.
It is a tough balancing act.
How do we encourage experimentation?
Yeah.
And allow these new technologies to flourish without letting things spiral out of control?
That's the challenge facing policymakers and regulators around the world right now.
Yeah.
And there's no easy answer.
Right.
It requires a delicate touch, a deep understanding of both the technology and its potential impact, and a willingness to adapt and learn as things evolve.
It sounds like we need a whole new playbook.
I think we do.
For how we regulate in the digital age.
Absolutely. The old ways of doing things simply don't work anymore.
Right.
We need to be more agile, more collaborative, and more willing to experiment and learn as we go.
This brings us to a recent event that has really shaken things up in the world of politics and finance. The appointment of Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Lutnick. His appointment has definitely sparked a lot of debate.
It has.
He's not exactly your typical government appointee.
No, he's not. From what we've gathered, he's a bit of a maverick.
He is.
Self-made billionaire who built his fortune in the world of finance. He's known for his sharp intellect, his aggressive business tactics, and his willingness to shake things up.
That's a pretty accurate assessment.
Yeah.
He's definitely an unconventional choice, but one that perhaps reflects the changing times.
Okay.
We're seeing a trend toward bringing in outsiders, people with real-world experience and a track record of success to try and bring some of that entrepreneurial spirit into government.
It's like they're trying to inject a dose of Silicon Valley into Washington, D.C.
Exactly. The hope is that these outsiders will bring fresh perspectives.
Okay.
Challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
Find innovative solutions to complex problems.
But of course, there are risks involved as well.
Of course.
These outsiders may not be familiar with the intricacies of government.
Right.
They might clash with the existing power structures.
Yeah.
And they might not be as accountable to the public as career politicians.
That's right. It remains to be seen how effective Mr. Lutnick will be in this new role.
Okay.
But one thing's for sure, his appointment is a sign of the times.
Right.
A reflection of the growing influence of technology, finance, and globalization on the world of politics.
You actually had the opportunity to interview Mr. Lutnick recently, right?
I did.
What were your impressions of him?
Well, it was a fascinating conversation.
Okay.
I found him to be incredibly intelligent, articulate, and passionate about his vision for the future of the American economy.
Okay.
He's a strong believer in free markets, innovation, the power of entrepreneurship to drive growth and prosperity.
So he's a bit of a capitalist crusader.
You could say this.
Okay.
He sees the role of government as facilitating business growth, not hindering it.
Okay.
He believes that the best way to create jobs and raise living standards is to unleash the power of the private sector.
But he also has some unconventional ideas, right? Like his proposal for a Bitcoin strategic reserve.
Yes, we did discuss that.
Okay.
He didn't come out and explicitly advocate for the U.S. government to start buying Bitcoin.
Okay.
But he did suggest that the government could leverage its vast assets, including land, mineral rights, other holdings, in more creative and entrepreneurial ways.
Interesting.
He hinted that this could even involve investing in emerging technologies like blockchain.
So it sounds like he's open to the idea of the government exploring new and innovative ways to generate revenue and manage its assets, perhaps even dipping its toes into the world of crypto.
You didn't rule it out?
It's certainly a bold vision.
It is.
And one that's likely to generate a lot of debate.
Definitely. Whether you agree with his ideas or not,
you
have to admire his willingness to challenge conventional thinking and explore new possibilities.
It's something we don't see enough of in politics these days.
I agree.
A willingness to think outside the box and embrace bold, unconventional ideas.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a larger theme we've been touching on throughout this whole deep dive. The idea that we're living in a volatility generation.
It does feel like the world is spinning faster than ever before.
It does.
Information is constantly flowing, technologies are rapidly evolving.
Yeah.
And the old rules just no longer seem to apply.
Things are changing fast.
They are. How do we even begin to make sense of it all?
Well, it's definitely a disorienting time.
It is.
But also an incredibly exciting one.
Okay.
This volatility is creating unprecedented opportunities.
Right.
For those who are willing to embrace it, adapt, and think differently.
So it's not just about weathering the storm, it's about learning to surf the waves of change.
That's a great way to put it.
But that's easier said than done.
It is.
How do we equip ourselves and future generations to thrive in this new world of constant disruption and uncertainty?
Well, it's a multifaceted challenge. It requires us to reevaluate how we educate, how we work, how we invest, and even how we think about the very nature of stability and security.
It sounds like we need a complete paradigm shift.
I think we do.
We can't just keep doing things the way we've always done them and expect to succeed in this new environment.
No, we need to rethink our assumptions.
Okay.
Embrace new approaches.
It's like that saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
It is.
This era of volatility is forcing us to invent new ways of thinking, new ways of working, new ways of living.
Precisely. And that's where I see the potential for real progress. It's a time for bold ideas, for experimentation, for challenging the status quo. It's a time to reimagine what's possible and create a future that's more aligned with our values and aspirations.
Well, that's certainly an inspiring thought.
It is.
But it also raises a lot of questions about the impact of all of this on the job market. You know, we've already seen how automation and AI are displacing jobs in various sectors.
It's happening.
What happens when these trends accelerate? Are we headed towards a future of mass unemployment?
It's a valid concern. and one that we need to be taking very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that it's important to avoid falling into a trap of pessimism or fatalism.
Okay.
Throughout history, technological advances have often displaced jobs in the short term,
Right.
but they've also created new jobs and opportunities in the long term.
So you're saying that we need to adapt, to retrain,
We do.
to embrace new skills and new ways of working.
Absolutely. The key is to be adaptable,
Okay.
to be lifelong learners,
Uh-huh.
and to be willing to embrace change.
Okay.
The jobs of the future are likely to be very different
Right.
from the jobs of today.
Yeah.
We need to prepare ourselves for that shift.
It's like we need to become more like entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Constantly scanning the horizon for new opportunities and being willing to pivot and adapt as needed.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it's not just about individual workers.
Okay.
It's also about companies, educational institutions, governments working together to create an ecosystem that supports innovation, entrepreneurship, and lifelong learning.
It sounds like we need to rethink our entire approach.
We do.
To education and job training.
We definitely do.
Okay.
We need to move away from the traditional model of front-loading education in the early years of life.
Okay.
And towards a more continuous, lifelong approach to learning.
Mm-hmm.
We need to equip people with the skills and mindsets they need to thrive.
Yeah.
In a world of constant change and disruption.
It's a big challenge.
It is.
But it's also an exciting opportunity to reimagine the future of work and create a more equitable and fulfilling society.
I couldn't agree more. It's a chance to create a world where work is not just a means to an end, but a source of purpose, meaning, and personal fulfillment.
Well, that's a hopeful note to end on.
It is hopeful, right?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like this volatility, while unsettling, is also pushing us to reevaluate what truly matters.
It is.
It's prompting us to ask ourselves, what kind of future do we want, and how do we get there?
Those are the essential questions, and I think a big part of answering them lies in recognizing that we're not just passive bystanders.
Right.
We have agency.
Okay.
The power to shape the future through our choices and actions.
It's so easy to feel powerless in the face of these massive global trends.
It is.
Like we're just being swept along by forces beyond our control.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. We do have a choice.
We do.
We can choose to be informed.
Absolutely.
Engaged and proactive.
Exactly. And that starts with asking ourselves, what role do I want to play in this transformation? Am I going to be a spectator, or am I going to step onto the field and participate?
I like that analogy. It's game time.
Yeah.
What position do we want to play? But seriously, it's a question we each need to grapple with.
Right.
This isn't just an abstract conversation.
These trends are impacting our lives, our communities, the world around us.
You're absolutely right. This is about more than just understanding Bitcoin or AI.
Right.
It's about shaping the future we want for ourselves and for generations to come.
So what does that look like in practice? What can we actually do starting today to make a difference?
Well, I think it starts with being informed, as you said.
Yeah.
We need to understand the forces that are shaping our world, both the opportunities and the risks.
Right.
We need to be critical thinkers, able to discern fact from fiction, and to evaluate information from a variety of sources.
Right, because it's so easy to get caught up in the hype or the fear-mongering.
It is.
We need to be able to cut through the noise and think for ourselves.
Absolutely.
But information is just the first step, right? What do we do with that knowledge?
Well, we need to be willing to challenge our assumptions, to be open to new ideas, and to adapt our thinking as the world changes around us.
Okay.
Now, the skills and knowledge that were valuable in the past may not be as relevant in the future.
Right.
We need to be lifelong learners, constantly updating our mental models and expanding our skill sets.
It's almost like we need to embrace the idea of becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. The world is changing so rapidly that we're constantly going to be pushed outside of our comfort zones.
Exactly. And it can be scary, but it can also be incredibly exhilarating.
Yeah.
It's a chance to grow, to learn, to discover new possibilities.
Right.
It's about embracing the adventure of being alive in these transformative times.
So we've got information, adaptability, and a willingness to challenge our assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
What else is essential for navigating this new world?
Well, I think it's crucial to cultivate a sense of agency.
Okay.
We need to remember that we're not powerless.
Right.
We have choices.
Yeah.
And those choices matter, whether it's how we spend our money, how we vote, or even just the conversations we choose to have.
Right.
Every action has a ripple effect.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of the challenges we face.
It is.
But you're right, we can't just give up and surrender to fate.
Right.
We have a responsibility to make our voices heard.
We do.
To participate in shaping the future, even in small ways.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be some grand, heroic gesture.
Okay.
It can start with small, everyday actions. Supporting businesses that align with your values, engaging in thoughtful discussions about these issues, even just being mindful of your own digital footprint.
Right.
All of these things contribute to shaping the future we want to see.
So it's about being conscious consumers, informed citizens, and active participants in shaping the narrative.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it's also about recognizing that we're not in this alone.
Right.
We need each other.
Yeah.
We need to build strong communities to collaborate, to share ideas, and to support each other through these challenging times.
It's like the saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
That's a great one.
Yeah, we need to harness the power of collective wisdom and collective action to navigate these uncharted waters.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's ultimately what gives me hope.
Okay.
Despite all the challenges and uncertainties we face, I see so much creativity, so much ingenuity, and so much passion for building a better world.
That is hopeful.
It is.
It's not just about surviving these changes.
Right.
It's about using this moment as a catalyst for positive transformation.
Exactly. And that brings us back to your initial question.
Yeah.
What kind of future do we want to create? And I think that's where it all begins. We need to articulate our values, to envision the world we want to see, and then start taking steps to make that vision a reality.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about Bitcoin, corporate treasuries, the changing nature of work, the tension between innovation and regulation, and the importance of agency, adaptability, and collaboration.
We have.
It's been a whirlwind tour of the forces shaping our world.
It has. But I think the key takeaway is this. We're living in extraordinary times.
We are.
And we have an incredible opportunity to shape the future.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy. And it's going to require us to be courageous, creative, and compassionate.
Yeah.
But I believe we're up to the challenge.
I agree. I'm walking away from this conversation feeling informed, inspired, and maybe a little bit overwhelmed, but definitely hopeful.
That's the spirit.
Yeah.
It's not about having all the answers.
Right.
It's about being willing to ask the right questions, to embrace the unknown, and to embark on this journey of discovery together.
Well said. So to you, dear listener, thank you for diving deep with us today.
Thanks for listening.
We hope this has sparked your curiosity, challenged your assumptions, and left you feeling empowered to shape the future.
We do.
Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.